Happy Hour. I'm Marcie Keithley, your host, and we have Jennifer Falsing and also Beth Sturry in the Zoom room helping out. So again, we want to welcome all of you here this evening. One thing that we like to do when we first start out, we want to talk a little bit about who we are and do some little housekeeping items before we start and we introduce our guest. So Jennifer, can you put our slides up? We are the National Association of Adoptees and Parents. Again, we do host an annual conference in Indianapolis, scheduled for the 10th and 11th of September of this year. So if you're interested in learning more, please feel free to reach out to one of us. Well, our next newsletter will be going out in July. We do partner with other nonprofits, and we've done some events with Adoptees Connect. They've been a big supporter of our conferences in the past. We do elevate and uplift the voices of everyone in the constellation. We've got a universal event calendar, again, so you can see what's going on with other organizations as well as our own. This episode will be recorded this evening and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. We do support adoptee rights legislation, and all of us are available to speak at any event. Okay. You have one more, Jen? There we go. And we just ask you to please remain muted, raise your hand, use your virtual hand if you've got a question, or you're welcome to pose your question in the chat room, and we'll be monitoring that as well, and we'll call on you and you can ask Pamela a question. This is a public meeting with no guarantee of that information or identity is confidential. There's also the National Suicide Prevention Hotline numbers listed at the bottom. Okay, well with that, let's bring on our special guest, Pamela. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Who needs no introduction?
Thank you, ladies. I'm glad to be here. Thank you, everybody, for chiming in. I really appreciate you guys spending the evening here for a little bit. Of all the things you could be doing, you're here. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, we feel very honored to have Pamela tonight for one particular reason, and that is she does not do a lot of Zoom calls at all. So that takes away from Adoptees Connect's whole mission to stay connected physically. So we're just really thrilled that she's joined us tonight. And I know we have a lot of Adoptees Connect groups here with us this evening. We want to extend a warm welcome to you as well. So Pam and I are just going to get in and just start chatting. She's going to start off with sharing a little bit about her personal story and how she got started. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to just raise your virtual hand or pose it in the chat bar. Welcome, Pamela.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So I went ahead today and created some bullet points. I would stay on topic. I don't want to go all over the place, but I thought I would basically start with just a brief history of my adoption experience. I was adopted in Iowa in a closed adoption in 1974. I grew up in Cedar Rapids in Iowa and was born in Waterloo. I grew up in a single parent household. My adopted parents married and divorced a year later after they adopted two daughters from two different families. The single parent household was very challenging. My adopted mom was mentally ill, very mentally ill, and really should have never adopted children. But she did. And the childhood that I had in that home was really rooted and grounded in a lot of trauma. I think automatically from a young age, I was seeking something more. Even before I found out I was adopted, I was searching for somewhere else because I just felt like this is not the place I'm supposed to be. I ended up finding out I was adopted at 5 years old. I want to say there was a lady on the television having a baby, and I went to my adopted mom and said something similar to, "Did I come out of your tummy like that, mommy?" And she said, "No, you came out of another woman's tummy." And then the talk, came that I was adopted. And I think from that moment on, like my life was never going to be the same after that, because I started fantasizing about this woman. And I will never forget, and I know so many of the adoptees here can totally relate to these type of conversations if you were fortunate enough to be told at a younger age, where I know some adoptees aren't. But it rocked my world in a way that my adopted mother said at that time, um, you are my greatest gift. And because of your birth mother sacrifice, I was able to be a mother. And I'm always going to love her and be thankful for her. And I immediately, as a kid, I'm like, okay, so this transaction that happened was good for you, but who is this woman? And so I think I started searching for her immediately, but I knew that I was never going to find her inside this house. The only chance I had at finding her was being outside, because I just had this fantasy that she was going to come back and get me. And I know a lot of other adoptees can fantasy or can relate to that as well. I would go outside, and I remember being a little girl in Iowa, climbing trees to the top of the tree and reaching up and touching the sky, thinking that my birth mother's under the same sky as me, and maybe like that was like the only way that I could reach her, is to touch the sky. And I actually wrote an article about it one time titled "The Sky and I," and it kind of talks about the sky being a baby blanket for me growing up, because I didn't know her name or what she looked like, but I knew she was out there under the same sky I was. So I was searching from the minute I found out I was adopted for my birth mother. And as I said already, I knew there had to be something better than this life inside this home. Of course, I would sit outside and wait for her to come back and get me. And in my mind, I remember even like 6 and 7 years old thinking, this has to be a mistake. Like, who would really give their baby away and mean it? And I could never just really grasp at that age that this was real. This had to be a mistake. She's going to come back. It's just a matter of time before she finds me. Of course, that was all a total fantasy in my brain, and none of it was true. But by the time, I want to say 11, 12 years old, like the reality set in that she was never coming back. And so I started acting out, and really really self-damaging ways. I started drinking alcohol at 12. I was a habitual runaway, a lot of teenager stuff. I Sorry, I'm trying not to read the comments. Don't let that distract me, but I'll read them in a little bit. And I was in a lot of trouble growing up. And I kind of downward spiraled as a teenager, where I really just wanted to die. I tried to take my life as a teenager. Nobody even noticed. I felt like the pain that I was carrying of not knowing who my birth mother was or who my birth family was so great that I just didn't want to live anymore. And so alcohol became my best friend. I was a drinker from 12 years old, and that drinking career lasted 27 years of my life. And I don't think a day of my life went by that I wasn't drinking alcohol, except for when I was pregnant with my children. And alcohol was a coping mechanism for me. It was my best friend for most of my life, because I didn't know how to process the pain. I can say that I went to therapy from 5 years old on, really my whole life, in and out of therapy. Some of the therapy was like for the family unit, because there was so much dysfunction there. But nothing ever was talked about adoption. Every single time I went to therapy growing up, as a child, as a teenager, even when I was 18, telling them that I just wanted to die, never did they make a connection to adoption. Never did the word birth mother come out of my mouth. And obviously the root issues of abandonment and rejection and the primal wound and all of that were deep down there, and I couldn't even pull them out myself. I didn't have the language to be able to pull them out. But anyway, that was 18, was in another therapy group, got put on medication for, I guess, my attitude. I don't know what they thought was my problem, but but anyway, I feel like I've tried therapy my whole life off and on. to try to figure out different layers of this adoptee thing. And I end up finding myself there being the therapist almost every step of the way. And, thankfully now the tides are turning where a lot more therapists are actually adoptees, which is a huge, huge benefit for the adoptee community. But that wasn't ever around when I was growing up. And so I ended up finding my birth mother when I was 21. The best day of my life was hearing her voice on the phone, and it ended up being a total rejection from her. She hung up on me. She didn't want anything to do with me, and I ended up meeting her one time, but it wasn't really something she wanted to do. She did it because my biological sister basically made her meet me. But that experience was something that I was never able to accept, that she was rejecting me, or that I never looked at it as rejection. I just really felt it as just my heart being ripped to shreds, that she didn't want anything to do with me. And I don't think I could ever process what the rejection felt like. And I never gave up hope that one day she was going to want to have a relationship with me. But I did meet her at 21, and then one time, and she slammed the door shut. And, here I am drinking alcohol because I can't feel this pain. This pain is just too big for me, and I don't know how to process it. So I ended up finding my birth father about 10 years later, and met him once as well. And he also slammed the door shut and did not want a relationship with me. And both of those experiences for me, when she loved you so much that she wanted you to have a better life all the way back to the beginning, is something that so many of us hear. So you set yourself up for this high expectation that if she loves me so much, she's definitely not going to slam the door in my face. Like that was never something that I thought was going to happen. And I can honestly tell you that it was literally the biggest heartbreak of my whole entire life. And I'm not going to try not to cry. But getting the door slammed from both my birth parents just left me with a broken heart. So here we are, 3 kids and 21, 25 years old. Really pretty estranged relationships with my adoptive family, for a lot of reasons that I'm not going to get into right now. But I had 3 children, so I had 3 kids to live for, and I wanted to get to the bottom of my pain. Really, I wanted to start working on it, but I knew that I couldn't do it in the same setting of growing up in the dysfunction of the adoptive family. So I want to say it was about 2005. I packed up a 22-foot U-Haul and my children, and I drove the U-Haul across the country to Kentucky. I didn't have any family here and still don't have any family here, but I had some ties as friends here, and I didn't really have anywhere else to go other than Iowa. And I didn't want to go back to Iowa. Iowa was just a very painful place for me. It was a somber, bitter, broken-hearted place where, I spent my whole life dreaming about these people that want nothing to do with me. So Iowa was not an option. So I came back to Kentucky, and, I call it an escape. I escaped this toxic, dysfunctional, traumatizing childhood and household that I didn't have any choice but to be in. And it was the hardest decision that I ever made in my whole life to have to do that. Because I knew when I got here, I wouldn't have any family. I mean, that's a hard pill to swallow, but I wanted to do it for my kids. I wanted to do it for my kids so they would have a better life than I did. So here we are in Kentucky. I have no home. I have no car. I have no keys. I have no money. And I have no job, but I'm here. My twins' grandmother was nice enough to let us stay in one of her bedrooms. So my twins had bunk beds. My other daughter had a mattress, and I slept on the floor in between all of them for a couple months until we got on our feet. And little by little, I got a job, and then I got a car, and I worked my way up to getting back the life that I should have never been robbed from to begin with. But I was still drinking. I was drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking. And I did not think I could ever live without alcohol. I really never thought I could live without alcohol, because there were times where I would run low on alcohol and think I was going to lose my mind that I didn't have a box of wine sitting there. So we get a place of our own. I get a car, I get a job, and little by little things start looking up for us. The toxic dynamics to the house I grew up in were no longer present. And so I was able to start to present my kids with more of a family dynamic that I never had. And it's really hard to give your kids something that you never had, because I don't even know what that looks like. Like I don't, but I did my best to try to do that. And at the end of the day, I said to myself, at least they have their mom, at least they have their mom, and I'm alive. Because if I would have stayed in the place that I was before, I would not be here in front of you right now. But anyway, Marcie, do you want me to just keep going? Is that okay?
I was going to step in here and ask a question.
Yes, please.
Sorry. Okay, because I appreciate what you've shared with us so far. But can you want to walk us back to 12 years old?
Yes.
And I think some adoptees tonight would relate to this. This would resonate with them. 12 years old and that first drink, and where that all started and how that all started.
Well, I actually had my first drink in utero. My birth mother was an alcoholic, and she drank the whole pregnancy. So I had already had alcohol before I was even born. And so for me to pick it back up at 12, I was out in the streets at 12 years old. By 12 years old, I was running away. I was got locked up for burglary at 13 years old and on probation. Like I was out in the streets. So alcohol was everywhere for me. I had grown adult people buying me alcohol. So it wasn't anything really that exciting. It was just more of a coping mechanism where I didn't have to feel. When I was that age, 12, 13, 14, 15, I was really, really, really angry, and I was mad at the world, and I hated everyone. I hated myself, and I just wanted to die. And I honestly wanted someone to kill me. And that sounds really crazy to some people, but that's where my life was at. I wanted to die, and I wanted someone to kill me my whole teenage years, because the internal pain that I was feeling from my adoption experience was something that I had no hope. I had no help. I had no way to process it. Nobody understood me. And the only way out seemed like just to end it all. And of course, obviously that didn't work, but I did try. But that's kind of, I guess, my experience with my first drink at 12 years old.
And Pamela, David Bull has a question. David, you want to take yourself off mute?
Yes. Hi, Pamela. Nice to
Hey,
see
David.
you. Thank you so much for sharing of yourself tonight. We sure appreciate it. I was listening to you very clearly talk about your pain, and you referenced it before, and it sounds like you have a very clear understanding and a great vocabulary for that. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people that I encounter, other adoptees, feel that pain, but they always ask, what is that pain that I'm feeling? What help me to understand that? They can't put it into words. And for me, it took me a really long time to do that, right? It took a lot of years. And I've learned that it's obviously the way I think about myself, right? How I view myself as being defective or incomplete or immature or whatever that may be. And ultimately, it's the shame of having been relinquished. Something's wrong with me. So that's playing out in later life. And ultimately not being able to trust myself, let alone anybody else. So I put that out there too, and I hope I'm not putting you in your spot, but you've done so much work on this. Can you help us understand what that pain is for you exactly?
It's interesting you asked me that, because now, all these years later, part of what I was going to share, and I'll still share it in a few minutes, but was the process of entering into a life of sobriety on August 13th, 2012, which is my actual birthday, was the last drink of alcohol I ever had. And so, of course, at that time, this gives me opportunity to just jump to that because I was almost there anyway. At that time, quitting alcohol was actually the easy part for me, but all of the feelings that came rolling in after that, like literally knocked me flat on my face. Over 100. I mean, I was flat on my face with all of these emotions, and no one was there to tell me what you're feeling is grief. What you're feeling is the loss of everything that you had lost. No one was anywhere to validate that all of this pain that I had been carrying all these years was actually grief. And so for me to be able to identify with the whole grief process and what that looks like being an adoptee, I was pretty much on my own doing that. I started my recovery journey, as I said, on 8/13/2012, and I started AA a little bit. And then I went into Celebrate Recovery and spent 4 years there. But neither of these spaces, they were great in a lot of regards, but neither of them were safe spaces for me being an adoptee and me being able to share the details about having a broken heart for my adoption experience. I tried, and I was silenced multiple times by adopted moms each time. And there was even a situation where I was silenced, I was shut down. And if I would have been suicidal at that time, I would not be sitting here right now, because it was the first time I ever opened up in my whole life about my birth mother, ever letting the word birth mother come out of my mouth, and I was slinging snot. I mean, it was so emotional. And an adopted mom interrupted me and told me, I don't know anything about adoption compared to what she knows. And I tell you this because that experience has changed my life forever. That one experience, I left out of there that day thinking, I have no hope. If this is, the only thing that I had to try to help me stop drinking alcohol and to try to work through some of this pain, and I get silenced by an adopted mom multiple times in my experience at this place. This is I don't have any more hope. I don't have any more resources. There is no help for me. And I left out of there that night thinking I was never going back. And like I said, if I was suicidal, I probably would have ended my life. Because that's the resources for adopted people. That is my experience for the resources for adopted people. And that experience is one of many experiences that has fueled my desire to create adoptee-centric resources. But to get back to your question, the grief process for me is where it would come out in anger in a lot of ways. It would come out in anger and different triggers and whatnot. Different triggers still come quite frequently, but grief and allowing myself the space to sit with my grief, the acceptance of this is going to be here forever was a huge thing for me, because the circles that I was running in with the, secular recovery programs, they put this expectation on you of being healed, or you have to forgive, or you have to do all these things in order to get this. And I tried all that. I tried it for years and it did not work for me. And the soonest I walked out of the doors of any of those, recovery programs, and I accepted that this pain is here to stay, and this wound is actually likely a wound that's never going to heal, for me anyway, is the minute that I actually started healing. Because I learned that I had to create a space for it. I had to sit with it. I had to cry. I had to go through the process of, it might be every day. I think when I first came to this realization that I'm not going to be healed, like the primal wound is a real wound. It doesn't matter if me and my birth mother had a great relationship, but we didn't. I was rejected by her, and the primal wound, and then the other mother wound, and all these mother wounds, like these wounds are not going away. But the soonest I stopped trying to make them go away and I started sitting with them and processing them, that's when I actually started healing. I can keep going on. I got more, but
Thank you, Pamela.
You're welcome.
Okay, do we have any questions at this time? Would anyone like to start after David? Don't see any hands up yet. Well, let's talk about Adoptees Connect. You mentioned, Pamela, that you started the group in Lexington first, right? And with Kevin Engel. And
Yes.
Yes. Tell us about that and how that went.
Well, Kevin is my buddy for life. I love Kevin. He's MIA from Facebook for a little bit, hopefully, but I love Kevin. I had the vision for Adoptees Connect in 2015. I had come to this uh, several different adoptee low points where I was having a hard time finding my way out. And I actually ended up putting some ads on Craigslist. That's been back when Craigslist was popular, seeing if there's any adoptees in the area that wanted to connect. And I never really got any hits off of that. And so I ended up looking to see what the highest rated adoption agency in the state of Kentucky, who they were. And I decided to reach out to them because if anybody has any resources for adoptees, maybe they do. I was pretty much fooling myself, but anyway, I reached out to them via email and I said, hey, this is my name. Do you know of any adult adoptee resources? I know you're in the adoption arena. Is there anything you can help me with? And she responded back and she sent me a link and said, looks like this lady's trying to form a support group. And she sent me my own link. And so at that moment, it all hit me just flat in my face that if adoptees want any resources, they're going to have to create them themselves. Between 2015 and 2017, that's a 2-year gap between the vision of Adoptees Connect and actually spinning the wheels in motion. There was a lot of things, personal things in my life that happened between that time, but 2017 was a really monumental year in my journey because I think I had probably hit the lowest point that I had ever hit in my whole life. And I want to say 4 really significant adoptee things happen that were really, 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 really heavy for me. And one of them is building a relationship with a newfound brother. And he was literally the only accepting piece of my whole journey. And I found out that he was actually not my brother through DNA. And so that whole experience was just, there's not even words to put into what that did to me. But my adopted mom passed away all within a couple-month period. And then the brother that I thought was my brother ended up getting killed in a motorcycle wreck. And then I got to meet my biological grandmother on my birth father's side for the first time in my whole life. And you would think that would be a dream come true, which it was a dream come true. But all of these things happened in a couple-month period where my emotions were just shot. And I ended up, I ended up in a really dark, sad space. And it was so dark and so sad that I was planning some kind of an accident where it was a suicide, but it was going to look like an accident because I just didn't want to burden anyone with some crazy suicide where it looked like I did it. I just wanted to just look like it to look like an accident. So in my mind, that's where I was planning, and that was probably October, November of 2017, and I would get off work, come home, and be in bed, and I was depressed and I was sad, and I just kept having this nudge of you need to get up and you need to take the vision that you have for Adoptees Connect and you need to put the wheels in motion for it. And I got the strength up to do that. And as soon as I made the announcement that that's what I was going to do, I just decided to see if anybody else wanted to do it with me. And Kevin Engel is the one that was like, I want to do it. I want to do it. And I'm like, oh my God, we're both going to do it. So January of 2018, we launched the first Adoptees Connect group. Kevin reminds me, and he rightfully does, that his group was actually the first group because his started at 10 a.m. The same day that mine started at 5 p.m. So Kevin actually has the first Adoptees Connect group on the map, and I let him brag about it. So that's kind of how it got started.
And you have over 50 groups now all over the United States and 3 in Canada, right?
We do. And it's actually a little less now because of COVID. That was one of the things that we just took a really big hit when COVID happened. to everybody, I mean, I don't even think I have to go there with what COVID did to everybody, but we did lose a few groups, but we're gaining a few back. And we just started planning more groups, made an announcement a few days ago about that. And it's really an awesome thing to see so many of the groups grow and so many of the adoptees all over the place, creating these spaces, you know, and it is probably the biggest honor of my whole life just to be able to support them and to create something that was really sparked by one of the most painful seasons of my life, that almost killed me. And it actually, something being made good out of that. And, you know, that's one of the messages that I really want to send to anybody that's listening today, specifically the adoptees, is that, you know, we have the visions for a reason. And I just need them to know that nobody is going to create these for you. Nobody's going to do this. So if you have a vision, I really encourage you to put the wheels in motion, to create resources for the adoptee community. And if it's not a resource, something for the adoptee community, anything, because, you know, nobody's going to do it for us. And it all started for me with a vision and a broken heart. And that's what, you know, the root of Adoptees Connect. And I think August 13th, I celebrate 9 years sobriety. So I've been able to keep my sobriety in all of this. And that's, thank you, David. That's a huge thing for me, to be able to spend the last 9 years working on this mess, this mess that adoption has been in my life. But you know, I wouldn't trade it for anything if it was to take back, you know, all of the good that Adoptees Connect has done. So I'm just really thankful today.
Okay, Pamela, I just wanted to read you a quick comment from Suzanne Gilbert. She had to hop off of here. She did want to chat with you briefly, but she just said it was really great meeting you at our conference in Indiana when you were, you know, like several years ago. And but she had another commitment and she had to hop off, but she definitely wanted to say hello and how much.
Oh, I love her. Thank you. Hopefully I get to see her in September.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I believe Elizabeth has her hand up. She would like to ask a question. Elizabeth, would you take yourself off of mute, please?
Thank you. Yeah, my question is to Pamela, and thank you for your story and your comments. I wanted to ask you, or if anyone else wants to chime in, I guess, if that's okay, other adoptees, that I'm a birth mother and I have trouble relating to my son because he's very resistant and I'm the one always reaching out, and I go silent for a while because I feel like he's not into it. He's not open to it, though he does react. He comes back with one-word answers and that sort of thing. And that may be his personality. I really don't know him that well, but how would you suggest, or might you have an idea of how to inspire an adoptee to get help? Because I do believe he says he doesn't have adoption issues. And I mean, he's 52 and I don't know, he's never been married. He has trouble with relationships. He seems to go away a lot. He's on his way right now to the Middle East, and because he's military, and he keeps, you know, getting into these assignments, which I take personally because I think he's trying to get far away from me. He really didn't want to be found, and so he's made that very clear in many ways. But how do I approach him and say, you know, please get some help, because it feels like you're not really a very happy person. I know he's had some drinking issues as well. Is that something appropriate to ask here, or?
I don't mind sharing my input. I'm not necessarily sure that it's what you want to hear, but I think that personally, it sounds to me like he is happy doing what he's doing in his life. For you, and this is nothing personal with you, but for you to ask him to get help when your decision is the decision that has impacted his life, it doesn't seem like that is a good fit as far as I can tell. I wouldn't want to be the one to do that, because what you could possibly do is sever the little bit of communication he is willing to give you. And that would probably hurt a lot more. And I'm not a therapist. I don't know his side of why he is the way he is. I know sometimes military-minded people are that way, a lot more than people that aren't military-minded. That's really, I think, all I have for that.
Thank
it's hard
you.
to tell. You're
I
welcome.
appreciate that.
Of the therapists or counselors that we have this evening, would someone like to weigh in on that? Anyone? Oh. Who's with us tonight? David, do you have anything to add to that?
I
Barb?
appreciate the courage of Elizabeth answering that question. It's not an easy answer. I agree. I feel for an individual who might seem to be struggling, but I agree that we have to be really careful when we assign motives to what people do, because we can't really be for sure. We can't be in their head with them. We can't understand what motivates them. We can only be there, and we can only offer unconditional positive regard, and hope that if they need to turn to us, we'll be there for them. And that's, I think, the best we can do. Sorry, it wasn't
Thank
more
you.
optimistic.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
And I just wanted to chime in that it's okay. Like, some adoptees are not going to necessarily, if they had a good positive adoption, that they may absolutely not feel any type of trauma or any residual feelings that they can identify at this time. And then also, I have to say, and not being sexist, but there is something to be said about male adoptees, and I hope there are male adoptees on this call that can maybe, speak to that a little bit. But I think there's a loyalty aspect, and then also the one that raised that male child is the one to which they have gotten their nourishment and everything, all that they needed. So yes, you're his birth mother, and he probably respects you for that, but at the same time, he may not really need you to be in his life as the birth mother at this time. And it's not personal, but it's just where he's at right now.
That kind of resonates, and what David said also, and I appreciate what Pamela said as well, because he really has kind of said that. Like, he says, I don't need another parent. His parents are both gone, but he said, I'm not looking for another parent. But he will answer, when I reach out to him. So that's something I am grateful for, and I appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for the question, and thanks, Barb. There is another comment here from Jennifer. She said, I would say that the trauma of the separation is so deep, not sure anyone can force any other to really, I can't read that part. I'm sorry. With it until they are ready, can only deal with own grief.
Thank you.
Kelly Layton says, thanks so much for creating Adoptees Connect, Pam. Adoptees Connect has been such an amazing resource for us adoptees.
Oh, you're welcome.
Tina, you have a question. Will you take your...
Yes, I was wondering how old your twins were and the conversations around the addiction from your birth mom to you. So I'm not sure of their ages, if you've had conversations, or how do you think that's affected them?
Well, that's a really good question. I didn't actually get to share that when I found my birth father as well. He's also a raging alcoholic. My birth mother has passed away from COPD and alcoholism, and my birth father is going to be right behind her. So knowing that, finding that truth really rocked me to my core. Because they didn't raise me, and I spent 27 years drinking alcohol, and I picked the alcohol thing up, and nobody in my house even drank. But when I started my recovery journey, my kids' childhoods was filled with party Pam. Like mom was the partier, mom was going out, mom was having cookouts, mom was, always a party. Life was just one big party for me. And that was pretty much their childhood. So it definitely impacted them in ways that, the recovery, I always say recovery is not for sissies, but one of the main things that I had to do when I decided to stop drinking alcohol is I had to make amends and get right with my kids. That was probably the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. But I did it for my kids. It was a lot of tears, a lot of, remorse, a lot of, just trying to make the wrongs right and trying to share with them that when I was growing up, I didn't have the tools that I needed to work on my deep rooted issues of abandonment and rejection and the primal wound and anger and rage and grief and loss. Like I had zero tools. So sharing that with them and being really transparent with them, they have actually been my number one supporters and fans. And I also have an older daughter that's almost 27. So I have the twins are just turned 23. If that answers your question, but they're my biggest cheerleaders, and they're my ride or dies through the whole thing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Our kids are similar ages, and I'm just finding out that there is addiction in the family, that my biological father died of addiction related. So it puts a different history, right, for me and for them. And so I was wondering how much conversation, being that the ages that your kids are, obviously I can have the same conversation with my kids. I wasn't sure if they were younger. So,
Right.
but that truth and the transparency, I think I just commend you for that, because I feel, especially just being a parent, period, when we can say to our kids at any age, I made a mistake or I was wrong. I feel like for me, I didn't really hear that growing up. And so when an adult person says, I made a mistake, I feel like, you know what, it's human. And we need,
Right.
I need that. I need to hear that.
Right. Yeah. And sadly, most of us haven't had the resources that we need to work on our stuff. We've been failed by the world. I can point out different areas, but literally the whole world has failed adoptees. So, a lot of us are just trying to stay alive and find a glimmer of happiness and hope in a life that has been really, really painful. And I think one of the messages for me is just finding purpose in the pain and taking the broken-hearted pieces that have been shattered all over the ground for most of my life and trying to put them back together again and create something that is helping other people. And I also want to say thank you to all the Adoptees Connect facilitators that are on here, because I know a lot of you guys are on here, and I couldn't do any of this without you guys. So you know who you are, and I appreciate you guys, and I'm so thankful for every one of you guys for your commitment in creating these spaces for adoptees everywhere. Like I can't, thank you's not enough. I just know that I will always be grateful for you guys.
Okay, we've got a lot of comments coming in, a lot of questions. Keith, would you like to go ahead and ask your question for Pam?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll just ask it on video. So it was hard to explain, typing it that way. I guess as someone who's kind of been, connected with people for the past 9 years, and sometimes I make these friends in the community and I realize they're usually not friends at the end of the day. Just the way people come and go. But with you, Pam, you've created an actual outlet and a resource for people with your Adoptees Connect. So have you had to sort of separate from, going the friendship route that we typically go when we connect with people? And what I'm saying, kind of separate that into it's hard to explain, but do I make sense at all?
No, it does. It does. And it is a really big difference. And I think I spent probably the first 8 or 9 years of my online activism and sharing my story, blogging, writing, building the online connections with adoptees everywhere. And that was a really fulfilling part of my life because I think even writing about adoption was the first place that I could write freely without anyone telling me how to feel or silence me. And I'm like, oh my God, I wish I would have done this when I was 5 years old. Like started writing about my pain and stuff. But when I started doing that 8 or 9 years ago, I started building friendships with adoptees everywhere. And they're like all over the world. And they're like, I understand what you're saying. I get it. Thank you for sharing that. And it became a healing tool for me, but then for adoptees far away, when we're building the connections in person, it's a whole different thing. When I was down in that pit in 2017, I couldn't get on the internet and say, hey friends, I want to die. I'm thinking about committing suicide today or tomorrow, and I need your help. I couldn't do it. I was paralyzed. The internet was absolutely no use. So all the connections I had all over the world were useless to me. And that was one of the things at that moment when I built these in-connection relationships. I can honestly tell you the in-person connections that I've built from my Adoptee Connect group here in Lexington. We've had adoptees drive 4 hours to our group before. They come from Cincinnati, from Louisville, from different parts of Kentucky, all over the place. And the bond that we carry is a bond that is just totally unbreakable. We are, in communication all the time. And my closest friends now, not all of them, but a significant amount of them are from the relationships I've built in my Connect group. And we check on each other. Like if Stephanie doesn't answer her phone for 2 or 3 days, I'm going to Louisville to where's Stephanie at? Because I don't know if she's still here, but Stephanie, I'm coming to your door if you don't answer your phone. So she's still on here, but it's a totally different thing. And part of the vision of Adoptees Connect is that every single community everywhere has one of these groups to fall back on. And so if I'm traveling to Iowa, we have a group in Iowa. I'd love to meet up with Maggie in Iowa. Or, if I'm going to New York, we have 2 groups in New York. I would love to go to New York. And even if they're not having a meeting, hey, you guys, let's meet. Like there's literally an adoptee connection everywhere you go. And the goal is that it just keeps multiplying, so it's a little different. I cherish every single relationship that I've built online, but it wasn't them that failed me when I was in the middle of a crisis. I couldn't get access to that community because I was literally ready to check out of the world. So I don't know if that helps answer your question, Keith.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, I guess because I've been having some growing pains the past couple of years with the whole adoptee community thing online and stuff. And, so yeah, and I still share on there, but it's just not like it used to be, and, but I'm on to other things anyway. But yeah, thank you. And I'm thankful that I got to meet you all at the last in-person conference. I'll be there in September. So
Yay!
Yeah.
I'll be excited to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Keith. We are seeing you're getting a lot of comments here, Pamela, of the support and love and, that you've given to all these individuals and with Adoptees Connect. And if you are with us this evening and you are an Adoptees Connect person, please go ahead and put something in the chat bar and let her know or what chapter you're with while we're continuing our conversation. But it would be nice to know how many of you are out there tonight. So
thank you, guys.
And Pam, Chris has a question. Chris, you want to take yourself off mute? You've got a comment there, and I thought maybe you might want to ask your question.
Sorry, I'm actually eating. It wasn't really a question. It was just a comment to just say thank you to Pam. Because yeah, the Adoptees Connect group was the first group of adoptees that I actually met in person after discovering that I was adopted in 2019. So I just wanted to thank her for the group. That's really it. Yeah, I'm in Columbus, and Christy facilitates the ones here, and it's been awesome.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm really glad to hear that. And that's one of the coolest things is I went up for the launch of her group, so I got to be there. And I've been down to Nashville, I've been to Salt Lake City, I've been to other different places where the groups have launched, and you guys are 3 hours away. And I remember when they first started out, and I know that everything's been kind of weird because of COVID, but they're doing great, and I'm so glad that you've been able to benefit from their group.
Great. Okay. Yeah, everybody's, well, we're chatting it up there. Let's see. Canada, California. Let's see, I'm trying to look here. Connecticut. Oh, and your vice president's here tonight. Lynn.
Yay.
Want to say hello?
Hey, Lynn.
Does this mean I have to turn on the camera? Hey, love you.
She's another one. If she doesn't answer her phone for a few days, I'm driving to her door. Like, I know where you live.
Pam, is there a group in Atlanta?
There's a group is being launched in Atlanta right now. Yeah, we're launching a group. She should be added to the website probably this week. And I think she's going to be setting up her meeting probably in June. So yes, we're just now planning one in Atlanta, the very first Adoptees Connect group.
Hey, Pam,
Did you
if
do that
somebody,
Yeah.
Pam, if somebody wanted to start a group, you have information on your website. Do you want to talk about that, and I can drop it in the chat?
Yes. So starting an affiliate, but we've simplified it to 5 easy steps. So she's going to share the start an affiliate tab, and then there's a volunteer application tab. That is full of a wealth of information. No, there's not a group in Wisconsin yet. We've had quite a few people over the years ask about a group in Wisconsin. We just haven't. We're just waiting on adoptees to say, hey, I want to plan a group. And what that looks like is all listed in the Start an Affiliate tab. It kind of gives you a rundown of what Adoptees Connect does for you, what we ask for you to be a part of Adoptees Connect, what facilitating a group looks like. You know, we are a place of support and validation. We try to kind of disconnect from the support group label, if you will, because of all of the stigma that's attached to the word support group over the years. And we actually kind of have leaned a little bit more towards like a social club or connection point for adoptees. We do have a 12-month curriculum where every single month we present a curriculum that you can talk about with your group. Each group is supposed to be meeting once a month. In person. Of course, with COVID, things kind of went off track a little bit where all of us were doing Zoom for quite a while. But most of us, well, quite a few of us are meeting in person again. And some of the groups are doing friends and family events, which I'm really big on them because I started to notice this kind of division between my Adoptee Connect group where I'm like, oh my God, I finally have my own community and my tribe, you know, like I'm hanging on to them for dear life and, you know, really protective of them in our time together. And I started noticing this division between my other friends and my family, like my kids, like, well, we're going bowling, but you can't go because you're not adopted. and I actually had people come to me and say, do you even want to be friends with me anymore? And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to do that. And so we started doing once a month, once every other month, sometimes once every 3 months, friends and family events where they can, hey Trish, I'm glad you're here, where they can actually come and meet each other, which is kind of like almost like a mini family reunion for adoptees, where a lot of us aren't ever going to have that. But yeah, that's how you can learn more about it on the website link. And any questions you have, you can email adopteesconnect@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook or Adoptees Connect on Facebook, and I'd be happy to help you walk through that, what that looks like, if anybody has any questions.
Okay, and Pamela, talk to us a little bit about Remembrance Day, Adoptee Remembrance Day, how that started, when it is, and how people can help.
I would be happy to. That is actually, there had been some talk in the adoptee community the whole time that I've been in the adoptee community online about some kind of a day to highlight. I don't really know what the visions were because nothing was ever brought to life like wheels were put in motion of doing it. But for me personally, every year for NAAM, National Adoption Awareness Month in November, I mean, I see adoptees and I myself have gotten so burnt out of trying to raise my voice to be heard for that month. And no matter what I do, it is drowned out by pro-adoption narrative. And I decided that I was done with that. Like, I cannot participate in one more NAAM only to have the pro-adoption narrative be louder and drown me out. And so I decided, to put a day in action called Adoptee Remembrance Day, which is October 30th every single year. Yet last year we had the first one. And it's a day to reflect adoptee loss, which every single adopted person loses a whole lot before they're ever adopted. That's one of the main things that we want to recognize on this day of remembrance. It's also to recognize all the adoptees that have died by suicide or at the hands of their adoptive parents. It's a day to recognize all of the adoptees that have never gotten their citizenship at no fault of their own. And it's also a day to recognize all the adoptees that died without ever knowing who they are, where they come from. You can look more up about it on the link in the box, but I created a website for this event, adopteeremembrancday.com. It's this first year was really memorable. I created an agenda and it kind of started early in the morning. At noon, we did 4 minutes of silence for adoptees being 4 times more likely to attempt suicide. We had poetry events, some of the Adoptees Connect facilitators. Liz DeBetta in Salt Lake City, she did that. We had Adoptees for Justice that did another one. We had Daryl Fuller, who wrote a song that was a really, really neat song for adoptees that we opened with. We had another adoptee play a song at the end. If anybody wants to get involved in any way, it's really, the vision behind it is to create a collaborative effort of adoptees everywhere. And it's not even just for adoptees. We would really like for everybody that has any impact in adoption to get involved in this, or they know an adoptee, or maybe they're adopted parent or a birth parent. It's the day is to reflect on the adoptee loss and losing adoptees and adoptees that have died by suicide. And we want everyone to get involved and to actually recognize this day and acknowledge this day as a real thing. So that's a little bit about Adoptee Remembrance Day. It's going to be October 30th again. In the next couple months, we're going to start asking for submissions of people that might want to be put on the agenda for the day. And so be thinking of ways that you can get involved. This goes to everybody that wants to participate in this day. The website has a long list of activities. You can wear yellow because that's a sign of remembrance. You can have a ceremonial bonfire. You can have, there's a ton of stuff listed already that you can look at ways you can get involved. But if anybody has any questions about that, you can reach out to me directly or look up Adoptee Remembrance Day on Facebook and RSVP to the event and share the event with your people all over the place, because this year we're hoping that every year it becomes more and more recognized. And it was picked for October 30th, right before NAAM, for a very significant reason, so that we can flood the airwaves of the realities of adoption and what we lose, and all the adoptees that have never been recognized and that have died without ever knowing their truth can flood the airwaves before National Adoption Awareness Month comes. And I just have personally decided I'm not participating in that anymore. And thanks for letting me share that.
You're welcome. Okay, we have some more questions. Anyone would like to go ahead and raise their hand or have a question for Pamela? While we're waiting for a question.
Well, we've got 2 people with hands up, Marcie, Mara and Lori.
All right.
Hi. May I?
I'm
Hi,
waiting to be
Marla.
called on. Hi everybody, it's Mar. I just wanted to say, Seattle has an Adoptees Connect affiliate group that is very strong, and I just have to say, yay Seattle. Seattle's amazing. I live in the boonies. I'm trying to find the right city for the boonies outside of Seattle Adoptees Connect place. And also, we've talked about that I can have an Adoptees in Recovery group as well, that it's a different hat, it's a different role. And I wanted to make sure to give you an opportunity to talk about how that's distinct from Adoptees Connect.
I'm really glad that you asked that, because I honestly didn't even put it down in any of my notes to talk about, because I knew our time was so limited. So I'm really glad. So Adoptees in Recovery I started writing back in 2000, oh God, probably 2010, under the name Adoptee in Recovery. It was just my hook. It was my handle. My blog is still now. You can look it up, Adoptee in Recovery, even though it's still Pamela Karanova. They go together. And being an adoptee in recovery was always a really symbolic thing for me. And when I started Adoptees Connect, for me, my service work and my recovery is pouring my heart and soul into Adoptees Connect, between my group, between growing the big mission, between networking with facilitators and adoptees all over to try to get them plugged into groups. That is my service work. However, I've noticed that over time, and I'm so glad you brought this up, Marla, that there's a lot of stigma attached to the word recovery. And so I am in my Adoptee Connect group talking about recovery things or recovery talk. And it's a little different. I can tell there's a little different vibe, a little weird vibe. And so I decided to branch off and also create Adoptees in Recovery groups, which are actually another affiliate group of what Adoptees Connect is doing. We started our first one in Lexington probably 6 months before COVID hit, and then COVID hit, and we just put it on the back burner because of COVID. And hopefully we'll start back up soon. I know Marla is talking about starting one, and I've had several inquiries about other people starting them as well. We also have a vision for transracial and transnational groups, and we actually have one in Canada right now, and we have some other adoptees that are inquiring about starting one. And of course, those are Adoptees Connect groups for transracial and transnational. And then we're also wanting to start LGBTQ groups for Adoptees Connect. And there's so many hats that all of us wear. And I know, and many of us know, that those specific groups of people need their own space. And they deserve their own space. And so their visions, we're just waiting on adoptees to come up and say, hey, I want to start this group, or hey, I want to start that group. And the wheels are ready to be put in motion. I think COVID put a damper in everything that we're doing, but we're literally rolling again, which is the greatest part of this whole year. So thank you, Marla.
Next question.
Yes, I've got a question, Marcie. Pam, were you at the Iowa release of original birth certificates?
I was there.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
I would be happy to talk about it. I have known Michelle Spear for, I don't even know how long. I mean, it's been a really long time, at least 8 or 9 or 10 years, because I knew she was an Iowa adoptee, and we had some communication going back and forth about Iowa legislature. Well, I live in Kentucky, but I had visions in my mind that I'm just going to die and never see my original birth certificate. And if anything shifted in the state of Iowa, I would be the first person in the car on the way there to be there for whatever that is. Well, I knew that they were working on some legislation. I know there's a lot of, I don't want to say, I mean, there's some unhappy people with that bill that passed in Iowa, rightfully so. I don't think any of us want to give birth mothers rights like that bill was given them in Iowa. I think the first choice for everybody would be 100% every adoptee gets unrestricted access to their birth certificate. But Iowa is an old crotchety state with old-fashioned values, and they're not going to move. Like, they were not going to move. And I know that she had to kind of, I don't know, just wrestle with them to be able to get that bill passed, but it has a redaction in it. However, for birth mothers to be able to redact their information. However, the statistics are showing that less than 1% do that. And I think I tell this story every once in a while about this lady that I used to take care of that had dementia. And I would go get her in bed at night and I would tuck her in, and she was adopted. And she would look at the ceiling and say, I was adopted out of a home in Louisville. I don't know who my family is, but I wonder if they think about me. I wonder if I'll ever know who I am and where I come from. Every single day. She had dementia. She didn't even know who her kids were, but she remembered that she had a family out there somewhere. She didn't know who they were, where they came from, and that she was adopted out of a home in Louisville. So how many more adoptees are going to die like her and not know who they are, where they come from? And yes, DNA is making a pivotal impact here for a lot of people, but I also know a lot of people that aren't getting the answers through DNA. You know, so that experience was a once in a lifetime experience for me. I think honestly, everybody would 100% have 100% clean bill. However, this change that happened there is a huge thing. I mean, there's going to be so many adoptees that are going to get their birth certificates, and to be able to be there for that event was probably the greatest day of my life aside from birthing my kids. Because I never thought I would see the day that I was ever going to get my birth certificate. And it's almost like in my mind, I still don't believe it because I don't have it yet. Because I have to wait till January to apply. Since I'm under 50, I have to wait till January 2022 to apply, which of course I will. But it was an awesome experience. It was great. I was so proud of Michelle and everybody that helped her, and honored to be able to be there with them. So it was awesome. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. Missouri opened their original birth certificates in 2018, and it also had a redaction that the birth mothers could redact their name. And I remember when I first read that, I was real upset about it. And Carolyn Pooler helped calm me down and say, that's okay, only 1% does it. And so, yeah, I understand. So
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, everything happening in Ohio was pretty exciting, and we saw all the pictures online, Pamela. So thanks for sharing those. That was, and
welcome.
You were easy to spot in that beautiful yellow dress. So
that was a tribute. That was for Adoptee Remembrance Day. I wore that for all the adoptees that died without ever finding their truth, and I was like, if I'm gonna, go, I want to at least make some kind of an impact, not just to be a supportive person, but there's a whole lot of people that have died without ever knowing their truth, and that's what the yellow's for me anyway. Thank you.
Okay, let's see what we have here. Lynn Grubb says, Paige and I got to be at the Ohio opening celebration in 2015. It started as a clean bill, but at a redaction also. And Indiana has experienced that as well. So we're one of those tough states as well. The legislators just don't want to budge at all. But it is less than 1%, like you said. And okay, let's see. Okay, do we have any more questions? Anybody else got their hand up that I missed? Go right ahead. I thought I saw one here.
Yeah, Paul's got his hand up. Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, that's good. I pressed the right button. So Pam, in a way, what you're doing saved your life and is so inspirational that where you were 9 years ago, that the physical act of connecting with other adoptees live changed your course. And that's just so inspirational. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you so much. It's really been, I mean, with my experience with therapying the therapist, teaching them about the primal wound. I mean, in 2017, I just threw my arms up in the air and said, I can't therapy another therapist. I just can't do it. And I'm not saying that there's not good therapists, and I'm not saying I don't recommend therapy for adoptees. I just think that you have to find an adoptee-centric therapist, number one. And I think for me personally, the in-person Adoptee Connect connections have been life-saving, definitely. I mean, it has, the whole mission of Adoptees Connect has given me a reason to keep going. I have a reason, and it's my 3 children. But now I have another reason, and it's Adoptees Connect. So it's been pretty miraculous. Now I want all the adoptees everywhere to experience the in-person connections. That's my heart and my goal in everything behind what I do, is that everybody get to experience that, because it's really magical. It's really magical. We can come from so many different areas of life and have totally different experiences and personalities. But when we have that one common bond of being adoptees, it's like, it's just magical. That's all I know. It's like, I don't care what you've done in your past. I don't care what your beliefs are. I just love you anyway, you know. And to be able to reach out and hug them and go for walks and go to the park. Like our group, we go hiking and we go, you know, go out to eat for Sunday dinners, and we keep it moving, and we walk life out together. And it's definitely been a life-changing thing, and I'm honored to share it with others. So thank you.
Good for you. That's great.
Okay, let's see. What is Nebraska's adoption access relative to Iowa? I don't have the answer to that. Does anybody in our audience have any clue about Nebraska? Oh, they suck. Okay.
They suck.
Okay, they suck. You know a little bit about that, Ann?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm in reunion. I had notarized written permission from my birth mother to get my original birth certificate, and they came back denied. You know, privacy and all.
Okay, do you have any resources for failed reunions? Secondary rejections?
Excuse me. Gosh, I just saw somewhere somebody starting something for, well, Darren, are you in here still? Darren, he does.
He had to hop off a few minutes ago, Pam.
Oh, did he? Okay. Darren Watson is a reunion coach, but I'm not necessarily, I mean, I would assume he has to deal with rejection. Honestly, besides Adoptee Connect groups and connecting with other adoptees that maybe are possibly going through something like that. Thank you, Michael, for coming.
Well, we do have Dr. Joyce, who's doing reunion support. That would be a really good question for her that we could put in the Facebook group.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think I did see that. That's great.
And I believe that Jennifer will be posting the link for Joyce's upcoming support group call.
I will post that. I just dropped the link to our Facebook group for putting yourself together after reunion. And Joyce is holding her next meeting on June 1st. So I will go ahead and drop the registration link in.
Great, thank you. Oh, Haley, I appreciate that. Haley, would you take yourself off of mute? I appreciate you making that comment. Haley Radke. You still with us? Yeah, she says that they have a lot of episodes on secondary rejection on Adoptees On. And I know most of you here are probably very familiar with Haley Radke's podcast. So that's a good idea. Oh, gotcha. Okay, she's got kids around. She can't talk. That's all right. We understand. And barking dogs. Sorry, guys.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Please, sure, Jenny, go right ahead.
Hi, thanks. Thanks, Pam, for sharing yourself and giving all the information about Adoptees Connect and all. I'm in California. I've attended a few, not recently, but I wanted to ask, is it really meant for adoptees only, or is it meant for birth mothers to participate in as well? Because my experience was only adoptees, which was great, but my craving is to talk to every birth mom I can.
Oh, I so totally get that and how you would benefit from that. Definitely. The groups are all adoptee centric. The one thing that I was really, really set on from the very beginning, especially being silenced by adopted moms, is that they were going to be adoptee only. And one of the very first resources ever created where we're really, really, really set on adoptee only. However, when we do open up to friends and family events, there might be birth mother come or something like that. But generally, we don't have birth mother connections. And a lot of my view on it is that birth mothers have had resources over the years with Cub and different, smaller size support groups. The triad, which I don't usually use that word normally. I hate the word, but it's quick and easy to explain that, the constellation of has always had more resources than adoptees. So unfortunately, none of our groups will have anyone there but adoptees, as long as it's, a regular group and not a friend and family event. Hopefully that helps you.
Yeah, it's not to apologize. It's just the purpose of the meeting is different. I think Cub is a central thing for the birth moms, right?
Right.
So,
and you kind of want to connect together. I can so get that, because there's something that birth mothers give me, not all of them, but certain ones that you can really connect to, where they feed something in my spirit that I'm never going to get from my birth mother.
exactly.
They help me see perspectives that I crave to hear from her, that I'm never going to hear from her. So I totally get that. I do. And it could even be something that you could start yourself, where you could set up, a lunch date with birth mom, or, I don't know what it looks like, but those are the type of visions that I'm just shouting to the world of adoptee land is, if there's something out there that you need, create it. Because I think other adoptees would probably really like that too. The ones that don't want that, they don't have to participate. But I could definitely see there's some birth mothers that I've connected to online that I wish I could meet in person. I would love to just hug them, and they're like, I wish I could be your mom. And I'm like, me too. So I so get the birth mom thing. I really do.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
And Jenny, the other thing is too, you can also visit our website. Part of NAAP is that we do recognize all voices in the constellation. So we do have some resources on our website. And we do have moms in the room this evening, and we continue to keep our doors open for them as well. So you're free to reach out to me personally as well.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's one of the reasons I've enjoyed listening in. I actually watch the replays if I'm not local in this meeting. So thank you for posting those as well.
Yeah, we had Carol Schaefer on a couple of weeks ago, and we had a lot of moms on at that time, and they were asking for a support group. And that will be something that we will be adding to our calendar in the future as well. So you can watch for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Okay, well, it's getting to be that time. Do we have any last minute questions or comments for Pam? If so, please jump in. We've just got a few minutes. Okay.
I had a question. Pam, are you still doing the adoptee merch? And can they get Remembrance Day gear from you for that? From that site?
Yes, actually, that's a great topic to bring up. But adopteemerch.com was created, I don't know, 3 years ago, and I have merged that in with Adoptees Connect, where 100% of the proceeds goes towards Adoptees Connect, which is a nonprofit now. So Adoptee Remembrance Day merchandise is on there. You can go to the categories. You can see Adoptees Connect merchandise under the categories. There's all kinds of, coffee mugs, hoodies, t-shirts, all kinds of adoptee merch. And so thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, that's our #1 fundraising source for Adoptees Connect. So thank you.
And you can meet Pamela in Indianapolis in September on the 10th and the 11th.
Yes.
There will be other Adoptees Connect individuals there as well. And don't you have a Sunday event
Yes, I haven't called them yet, but I think we're going to try to do like we did the last year that you guys had it, is at the Sunshine Bowling Alley. It was perfect. Like literally all the colors at the bowling alley match Adoptees Connect logo. So I'm like, this is, plus it was so much fun to kind of release ourselves from the conference and the emotional overload of all of that, and to be able to come over to the bowling alley and just have fun and get to know each other on a really fun level. So yes, we're hoping to do that. That would be Sunday, probably Sunday around noon. I've got to call and make sure they're still open and everything. But yeah, we're definitely down to do the bowling the Sunday after the conference. And I can't wait to see everybody that comes to the conference and meet you guys in person. I've met a lot of you, and I really am excited to meet anybody else that's going to be able to make it. Reach out to me and introduce yourself before then, because I like to try to get to know people ahead of time, because I want to get to know you. So reach out to me if you can.
And Pam, what is the best way to contact you for those that want to reach out?
I would say Facebook or email PamelaKaranova@gmail.com. And if it's Adoptee Connect related, adopteesconnect@gmail.com will work, or the Adoptees Connect Facebook page will work as well.
Wonderful. Well, great. Well, we've really enjoyed having you this evening. We were so excited to have you, and we appreciate you spending your time with us this evening. Again, we'll let you read the chat room later. You can see all the love that you've received, but the adoptees love you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys for meeting with us tonight and giving us some of your time. So appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me. Lots of love.
Before we close, we've got a couple of closing announcements to make. Jennifer? Okay, next week we have Nathan Ross. I'm currently reading Nathan's book right now. He'll be joining us for our next happy hour next Friday. He's a therapist and a national child welfare consultant. So we're looking forward to hearing his story, learning more about the work that he's doing. And we hope you'll join us again next June the 4th. And do we have one more?
No, I don't have it up. I don't have it up. But I do know that I did post about our conference. Marcie had mentioned it. We are going to be doing both in person, and for those of you who just can't travel, we are working on the back end of developing a virtual option as well. Those tickets are all available for sale. I've dropped the link in there. Like I said, Adoptees Connect is going to do some other things, and we like to work with other nonprofits for that. But part of our fundraising that we do is we're going to have a silent auction at this year's event. So whether you're in person or virtual, you'll be able to see the items and bid on them. But if anybody knows any great resources to get some really great donations, we would be grateful to get those. We've got everything right now from California wine basket to airline tickets, but we'd like to have some more great options. So if anybody knows of anything, just let me know. It's Jen, Jen, at NAAPunited.org.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, I think that's a wrap. Thank you, Pamela, again for joining us this evening. Everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next Friday.